Hello, everybody. It's Friday Fire. Thank you, Icy Blink and Zeno and Teeny Tesla, Sean Donnelly, K8, and everybody for being here. Today's video is, well, typically Friday Fire uncovers all the fire stories of the week that maybe you missed. And what's burning down, what's alive, what's well, what's bad, what's good. We'll talk about a cool study of the best assets over the next 1 to 5 years, which I found quite comforting because I'm in all of them. The Bitcoin-Dixie correlation, what it means for us as investors. We'll talk about cars with fleas. We'll talk about Coinbase. We'll talk about hacks, biggest hack ever in the history of the world, not just in crypto, but for everything. ETH, Bitcoin chart, look at AI, look at smart wallets, look at Big Brother, biggest winners and losers, crypto adoption, and so much more. It sounds like a lot, but as usual, I go very fast. A nugget every 60 seconds. That's what KPM stands for. Thank you, Anglo Blackson and the whole gang for coming. It's so good to see everybody here every single day. And just a guy on the internet, not financial advice, just sharing information so you can make your own decisions. And thank you to the team at Patreon. This is Star Playa. I just joined Patreon 2 months ago and I get so much value out of it. It's impressive. The subscription is worth more than any information I could ever get for this low price. Woohoo! Thank you so much. And we, there was a time when we decided we were going to not charge anything at all, but we felt it was good to keep the scammers out because the scammers will never pay, which is good. Anyway, let's get into a little bit of fear and greed stuff and then get into some charts. First of all, fear and greed is up 55. It was 46 last time I shared this chart. And that's good. People are getting greedy. And last night, we had a bounce nearly to $99,000. And then we had a $2,500 dip because the liquidation hunting continues every single day. Do not be surprised, ladies and gentlemen, but take advantage. That's when you sneak in and you buy that dip. Have your USDC on hand to deploy. And in the stock market, they're also getting whacked today pretty hard. Huge names down big, but stock market fear and greed also dipping down. If you look at this history of the last 12 months, you can see extreme fear below 25. It did that twice in the last year. We're about 28 right now on this chart, so we're not far from that. People are very worried about the stock market, but remember, the stock market is a basket of stuff. 60% of stocks in the S&P 500, I believe, will be zombies in the next 4 to 6 years. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. They're not going to make it. We'll talk about one of them as well during this show. Maybe two zombies. Why not? It's good to understand exactly where the future is going. Now, before we get into all that, we're going to talk about Bitcoin versus Dixie from Bitcoin Magazine Pro. This is a cool little chart. And in the green, we highlight exactly what's going on. So it's hard to predict volatility. It's hard to predict direction, but there are lots of clues in charts and TA. Remember, FA, fundamental analysis, is for what, and TA is for when. But this is interesting because this is the Dixie, and Dixie historically moves inversely to Bitcoin. When Dixie goes up, Bitcoin goes down. When Dixie goes down, Bitcoin goes up. But recently, this has been fascinating so far this year, Dixie has rallied hard and Bitcoin has held its ground, chop solidating in that range between 92K and 106K. And this means that Bitcoin has a lot of underlying strength, even in very unfavorable macro conditions. There's no doubt the macro sucks. We'll share some of that later too, but that's good. Now, imagine for a second what happens when Dixie tanks. Guess what's primed to move? Yep, you got it. And somebody's buying the dip. Over $500 million was minted at USDC Treasury. That's a lot of money. So that goes straight into the markets. It doesn't stay in a stable coin. At least most of it doesn't. So somebody's going to be buying the dip. I know a lot of people were today because it was exciting. In fact, yeah, Bitcoin's still around 95K. It did fall to 94.8. But you know what? The weekend's coming up. And that's normally bullish. Maybe this money will go to work over the weekend. We'll see the results of that. We'll see. Now, we have been talking a lot yesterday about the new multiplier, but here you can see a second iteration from Glassnode of profit-taking exhaustion part 2. And this is the role of the sideways price action is to eliminate the profit takers. Once they're gone, the new leg up begins. The new leg up is imminent from all of the charts and all of the data that I see. It's nice to see that verified. Now, this just popped up literally minutes before I went live, and it was kind of fun. And I will analyze this more later. I'm going to do my own analysis because I'm a huge believer in time series, and that is certain assets are hot during certain times, certain assets are expensive during certain times, certain assets are very cheap during certain times. And you need to really think about the cycles, the rotation, the seasonality. It's so important when it comes to investing. That's why I love this chart. Let me try give you a little very quick breakdown. I'm going to analyze it much more, but literally it came in seconds before I went live. But here you can see Bitcoin in orange is the key asset consistently recommended by multiple AI models across all time horizons, particularly ChatGPT 4 and Gemini 2 Flash. By the way, those two AI models are now behind. I've tested them all. They are not as good any longer as Grok 3. Okay, just want to plant that seed for a second. But what I do love about this is how it looks at the different time frames. What is the best asset to own over the next 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, 10 years? And what's interesting is if you take Grok 3, for example, Bitcoin is the best asset to own this year. Hopefully it rocks. And then over the next 3 years, NVIDIA. And then over the next 5 years, Tesla. And again, as the time horizon extends, other assets like NVIDIA and Tesla become more prominent, particularly with Grok 3 and DeepSeek R1. Interesting. Apparently, DeepSeek R1 did a lot of training using ChatGPT, but the conclusions are different. And again, I will do a deeper analysis on this over the weekend because this is fascinating. The question is, which AI is right? And it's good. And I own those three assets. So I'm glad it wasn't showing things like Apple and Rivian. And we're like, oh my God, I'm in the wrong bags. That'd be very upsetting indeed. Now, ETFs, because they are a big driver of Bitcoin, and they've dropped on lack of volatility. When I say VIX, it's shorthand for volatility. And here you can see the BTF inflows, which are a proxy for Bitcoin institutional demand and retail demand, have slowed down significantly during the last couple of weeks, couple of days. And this suggests that the major players are waiting for a confirmed breakout before adding to their position. And once the volatility returns, we could see renewed interest from institutions driving Bitcoin even higher. See the way this lack of volatility, you always hear Michael Saylor and me repeating, volatility is vitality, but how this is confluent with this, the seller's exhaustion. And what was the other one? Primed to kick off this one. Okay, once Dixie begins to tank, Bitcoin will start a new leg up. So again, this, the money coming in, plus this, all paints a pretty good picture. Now, speaking of volatility as well, these are the most volatile stocks. This is a chart from FactSet. I think it was published by MicroStrategy, which is now called Strategy. They dropped the micro. And MicroStrategy is now more volatile than any S&P 500 stock. The implied volatility for an at-the-money options contract with a 30-day expiration is 70% for MicroStrategy. Moderna, 68%. Vistra, 68%. And the other names, I don't know, Dell is up there, 62%. And a few other names, Palantir, 58%, etc. But if you are an options trader, which I am, volatility is a lot of fun to play with. Again, this is what you want in an asset. I'm surprised Tesla isn't on there because Tesla and NVIDIA have been more volatile than Bitcoin over the past 6 months or so. And MicroStrategy is a proxy of Bitcoin, but MicroStrategy is Bitcoin on steroids, even more volatile. Now, let's talk about the ETFs a little bit more too. What's incredible is, this is from Hidobi, the number of Bitcoin that BlackRock has now exceeds 50% of all the Bitcoin in all the ETFs. It's huge. BlackRock, IBIT is the 800-pound gorilla in the space. What's also interesting for this chart too is, guess what? Fidelity just eclipsed 200,000 Bitcoin, which now they have more than Grayscale. Grayscale, when all this began, had 640,000 Bitcoin. Now they're under 200,000. So fees, matter. Grayscale is not trusted. And they just continue to shrink and bleed out. And the bleed out in the early 2024 was brutal. Every day, lots and lots for ages. But now it's kind of slowing down a little bit as well. So that is the ETF news. And it's regarding a central bank, but the story, in my interpretation, is tied to Bitcoin. And I've been saying forever that central banks are playing a very shaky game with money. And boom, here's the mess. The ECB scooped up tons of cheap bonds during the very ZIRPy days, the low rate days, zero interest rate days, to juice up the economy, aka QE, during C19. And that all worked fine until inflation went wild, and then they jacked up the rates. And because of that the disjoint between old bonds paying zero rates to the ECB shelling out big interest to banks, the ECB now has lost $9.21 billion, most of it in the last 2 years. Crazy. Again, big losses. I don't know when this is going to end, but they've got to figure out how to make some money. And maybe it's time for the central banks to allocate to Bitcoin. They do allocate to gold, which has helped them a little bit. But I also know the ECB hates Bitcoin. Not a fan. But that is a crazy amount of losses from the central banks. And that's the damage that they do not only to the economy, but also themselves, of pretending that inflation is not a monetary phenomenon, but pretending that they can control it by jacking interest rates, when in turn they just shoot themselves in the foot. So there you are. Another chart. And this is another Friday fire story. Bybit had a record hack, $1.4 billion. Some clever hacker stole that in ETH, and some staked ETH gone. Boom. And many believe, including myself, a bank run is incoming, which means people will start pulling everything from Bybit if they kept anything on the exchange in the first place. And we'll see. But this hit, 1.4 billion, I think it's 8 to 10% of their actual reserves. So they are in the hole unless they get it back. And this is, I think, Ben from Bybit, head of derivatives. And he said, to be honest right now, everyone is affected. And I appreciate that openness and transparency as well. So the best way to deal with the story is get ahead of it and just confront it head on. Don't pretend like everything is okay. Like the meme of the guy sitting inside the wooden cabin on the stool with the whole cabin on fire. Yeah, when it's on fire, just tell people it's on fire. Moto89, thank you for coming. Now, what else do we have in the Friday fire fold? A lot of fire. This one, it's actually good news. It's how Bitcoin was immune to the Bybit hack from Axel. It shows you that the big loss that did impact Ethereum more than Bitcoin stayed initially in a pretty tight range. But then what happens every single time, whenever there is a leak of bad news, the market makers pile on. And they use this mini catalyst as a way to push markets down and liquidate longs. Every single time it happens. Every single time. So watch that. When there is a little bit of bad news and something is not affected, market makers will use it to influence the market and drive it down to liquidate longs. And that's how market makers make money. In terms of the ETH Bitcoin chart, this is what it looks like since the hack. Funnily enough, there was a sell signal there, but the delta between Bitcoin and Ethereum is only 2%. So Ethereum fell 2% more than Bitcoin did, and Bitcoin had a very volatile day. We were over 99,500 at 3 a.m. this morning. I know because I was watching the chart. I don't know what I was doing watching the chart at 3 a.m., but I tend to watch it all the time. Andy and Roderick, thank you for coming. Happy Friday, everybody, as well. Don't forget to enjoy the weekend. And as Rob from Digital Asset News, he says, touch the grass. Go touch the grass. Now, another piece of Friday fire that had the whole market rattled yesterday is China's M1 money supply. Boom! It shot up huge. Massive spike in their M1 money supply. And this got all the crypto bros very excited. And they reported their money supply doubled from December. As of February 2021, it went from 60 trillion won to about 112 trillion won. And the problem is, the same thing happened with the M1 money supply in the US. And I immediately saw, it can't really grow this much this fast. It's impossible. It must be a recategorization of how M1 is measured. The US did the same thing with M1. You'll see the same spike with M1 too. But in December 2024, I think the People's Bank of China updated its methodology on how they calculate M1, and they broadened the scope to include things like liquid funds that would be on platforms like WeChat, Alipay, etc. And they weren't part of the earlier M1 definition, but now they are apparently, and that has had a huge impact. And it shows you how much these WeChat and Alipay platforms are holding so much money. Equivalent to that would be like the Venmos and the Cash Apps in the United States. Again, a lot of people hold a lot of bank. A lot of people that are unbanked actually use things like this as well to operate. Now, another piece of Friday Fire news, which is good news too, is again at 3 a.m., I saw this from Brian Armstrong from Coinbase, and he was so excited that the SEC have withdrawn their case against Coinbase, where they were trying to punish them for selling securities. As it turns out, crypto is not a security under the new definition. And hopefully there's more regulatory framework coming to crypto in the US, but we'll see. But this is good. This is good for the space, because now the onshoring process can begin. There was a lot of people that were involved in crypto. They went offshore to develop and build stuff. They went to Singapore, they went to Dubai, they went to other exotic destinations, maybe El Salvador, to do stuff. But now they're coming back. They're coming back. And this is what I call the crypto onshoring is happening once again. And Solana has a show in May 19th to 23rd happening. And not only is it happening in the US on American soil, it's happening in New York City. And New York State has been very unfriendly to crypto. So this is like big in two ways. One, the onshoring of development and activities and crypto conferences happening in the US, but also happening in a state like New York. So great news. Wonderful all round. And speaking of Solana too, there's a lot of rumors going around that, oh, Solana's dying once again because everybody's afraid of meme coins. Yeah, not when you look at the on-chain data. It's not at all. It still has the highest number of users, highest number of transactions, highest number of volumes across everything, NFT trading, stablecoin action, you name it. It's not dead. I've been hearing Solana's been dead since 2021. It's kind of like comical now when you hear it. Anyway, Solana smart wallets are here. Shout out to Squad and Helios for developing this new product. And what does it mean? I hear smart wallets and I'm like, ooh, is that like a hot wallet? Is that something different? Well, I tried to summarize from the information I get my hands on what it actually means. And it's kind of exciting. And I believe this will be a huge way to, again, bring way more users into crypto, because there are headaches with the way old wallets operate. And this is, again, what I call the path to billions. It really lies in simplifying onboarding and user experience while maintaining security and scalability. Now, first of all, it says no seed phrases, and traditional wallets require seed phrases, which are a usability nightmare to many. People lose them, they're hard to manage, they're hard to keep safe, etc. So now these smart wallets will eliminate this using alternative key management like social logins, Google logins, extracted key systems, maybe some body stuff like facial scans that's on the iPhone, etc. I'm not sure exactly what all the options are, but this will lower the barrier to entry for billions who are accustomed to Web 2 simplicity and can secure themselves easily. Number two is huge too, is zero gas fees. I'm not sure exactly how they do this, but we know other chains, gas fees can charge, dollars to $10 or $100 per transaction. And this alienates casual users, and it alienates 80% of the planet too. But now these smart wallets will have gasless fees, subsidized by developers apparently on real layers like Octane, which means users can transact without worrying about any cost. This is huge. And this will enable microtransactions. People may be selling an empanada on a street somewhere with an iPhone. They all have iPhones. And now they won't need cash anymore. And this will appeal to a much broader global audience. And we've seen that happen with stablecoins and microtransactions on USDC and Solana too already happen. And then programmability. These things are fully programmable. You can do automated payments, spending limits, KYC compliance without user intervention, which will give some people fits, but that's okay. But you already give it to Google and others, so it's not a problem. Or your iPhone carrier, etc. And scalability with proof of history and Solana scaling like a hot cat. It's going to be even more incredible now with Firedancer coming out and being more adopted. And this will bring a ton of adoption. Again, billions are coming to blockchain. Where will they go? They'll go where the best user experience is and the least friction. So this may sound like nothing. I guarantee you it's big. Very, very big. So watch this space. A lot of good stuff happening. And no, Solana's not dead. Now, a little bit of Tesla news too. This is also very big news, but positive news. From Dalton Brewer, friend of the channel. Tesla will reportedly begin selling imported vehicles in India as early as April. India is actually the second largest auto market in the world, not third. It is huge. Nearly 1.5 billion people. Yes, they don't buy very big, expensive cars, but I think this will drive the development of the Model 2 or the Model 2.5 or the Model Q, whatever you want to call it, the cheaper vehicle. I'm not sure if they can get all those cars in India by April, but Tesla has a tendency to move very fast as well. Ricky, thank you for coming. And then there's other rumors and news out there that Nissan and Tesla are going to get married and do something exciting together. This is a high-level Japanese group led by a former Tesla board member, I think, Hiro Mizuno, and a former prime minister. And they're trying to persuade Tesla to invest in Nissan. And the group believes Tesla might be interested in acquiring Nissan's manufacturing plants in the US. Super interesting. Now, Nissan was supposed to get married with Honda, but somebody jilted somebody else at the altar. Not sure exactly of the details because I don't care about legacy ICE auto. I think they're all going to be dead in a couple of years anyway. That's just my perspective. Yes, they'll continue to make ICE vehicles, but when it comes to EVs, they're toast, and EVs are the future. And there's no denying that, unless you are a denier, which is okay. I don't mind. But the question is, could this happen? Would Tesla want the legacy ICE Nissan factories that are optimized? They're not the machine that makes the machine, which is the secret sauce that Tesla has. And Elon Musk responded as well. The Tesla factory is the product. And he also hinted the Cybercab production line is like nothing else in the automotive industry, which means the unboxed process is happening. Okay? That's where they're going to, from 4 different directions, up, down, top, bottom, left, right, that's 6 different directions, stick a car together. It's unbelievable. And they have it. And we might see these new Cybercabs floating around Austin, Texas in June. And by the way, it's nearly March. That's not far away at all. Bitcoin's above 95,000 as I speak. Woohoo! We're alive. And you do not hate mainstream media enough. This is NBS News, NBC News, all BS. Tesla is recalling some of its Model 3 and Model Y vehicles operating software prior to 2023. The NHTSA announced Friday. And we know NHTSA make changes to things. There was a story from NHTSA that Tesla had to recall all their dashboards because the fuel signal or some battery signal, the font or whatever was off. The NHTSA changed their standards to be a little larger or smaller, I don't know, brighter, whatever. And it's like, oh, Tesla have to record change everything. They don't. They don't at all. The whole car is programmable from the ground up. It's a completely software-centric vehicle. There's no such thing as pulling them back in unless something really bad happens, which is extremely rare. And Tesla modifies all of these simple NHTSA changes with a simple over-the-air update. Tesla recalls nearly 400,000 vehicles over power steering issue. And then minutes later, Tesla rolls out software fixed steering issue in 376,000 vehicles. Now, it doesn't mean the steering had a problem. It meant NHTSA felt we need to change something. And like the fuel gauge or whatever the dashboard light was, no other car company could change it. Tesla could. All the others get away with it, but not Tesla. Anyway, remember, don't believe what's on mainstream media. You don't hate it enough. And CNBS, again, at it again. OpenAI tops 400 million users despite DeepSeek's emergence. They talk about DeepSeek like it's a threat to ChatGPT and OpenAI, which actually should be closed for profit AI, not open, not for profit AI, which is the old name, which was given birth to by Elon Musk, coincidentally. But CNBS ignores this. The number one app Okay, free app right now. Shout out to Jack for sharing, is Grok after T-Life, T-Mobile. And then number 3 is ChatGPT. Of course, you'll never hear MSNBS or any of these players saying Grok is now number 1. And it's only just begun. Now, getting back to car makers too, and cars with fleas. We talked about Nissan and Honda. And this is interesting too, because, and the reason I mention this too, the world is going to go through a massive phase of disruption over the next 4 years. Between now and 2030, a lot is going to change. That's 5 years. I assume part of 2025 is already gone. Anyhow, 6 years, 4 years, 6 years, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. But AJ talks about Rivian is the most loss-making U.S. stock company in history. He is not aware of any other company with more aggregate losses ever. And they've lost $23.3 billion as of December 2024. And they lose over $40,000 in every car, sometimes more. And even worse, though, you dig into the financials. Look at the blue here. That's revenue. It's shrinking. They are getting destroyed by the Cybertruck. Cybertruck is a far superior vehicle, and it drives itself, and it's the same price. And it's a complete horror show. And anyone that gives them money needs their head examined. Am I going to short yet? No. I'm going to wait for the next bounce, and then I will go short probably. But the debt is about to exceed cash, and they lose a fortune every year. And now growth is slowing fast. And Rivian's CEO, RJ Scaringe, I hope I got that right, all 2024, he talked about how they would be profitable by the end of 2024. No. In fact, they're going in the opposite direction. So again, don't believe what you hear, even from a CEO. Another bit of Friday Fire tech news too. UK government now has access to your Macs. And I know this is very political. I'm not getting political. But if you do have something sensitive on your Mac in the UK, think Big Brother, think Orwellian times, think the government might be watching what you are doing. And again, I have nothing to hide, so I don't care who's watching me. But just in case, this is interesting as well. And when this actually happened, I think J.D. Vance was speaking at Munich about stuff like freedom and no Big Brotherness too as well. And at the same time, the UK was demanding encrypted data from Apple. And this is where the US is fighting back. They will not demand it, but the UK government did. And Tim Cook from Apple nukes end-to-end encryption in UK after refusing to give backdoor access. So we'll see where this goes, but beware what the governments are up to and what they want, which is very terrifying. And there's lots of things changing in Europe. I don't quite know what's going on over there, and I come from there, so it's even more alarming to me. So I feel the pain for our European brethren out there. I hope it's not as bad as the stuff that I read. And final piece of Apple news, they launched it. A revolutionary new product. I think it even comes in different colors. It's a phone. They talked about unveiling a new family member, a new revolutionary launch of a new product. And it's widely confirmed to be the iPhone SE4. It's their budget-friendly phone. That's it. I thought it'd be something special, like a car or a new set of $5,000 goggles or something. I don't know. Didn't happen. But that's what happens. Anyway, RIP Steve Jobs. We miss you, man. Thank you all for coming. Happy Friday, everybody. Crazy time. Crazy time in the markets. Now, typically as well, when the markets are very weak on a Friday, that means they do well all over the weekend. So get ready. I'll be here every day with you all. So hope it goes well. Thank you to Sean Donnelly. Thank you to Beatcorn Bull. Beatcorn. It's nearly April 1st again. I love that. And T&D Tesla and the whole gang. K8. Thank you all for coming. Stay healthy, my friends. It's a bumpy time. February has not been the seasonal Feb we are used to. But last night was pretty exciting when Bitcoin nearly went to 99K and then fell right back. But who knows? We could be back there in 12 hours, just like we were 12 hours ago. Actually, 11 hours ago, we were at that level. Madness. Things happen fast. Risk happens fast. Thank you all. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend.